So, carrying on with our look back at Doctor Who's previous anniversaries, we move on to what I think might be my favourite, and that's The Five Doctors, which was written by Terence Dicks and directed by Peter Moffat and broadcast in the UK on the 25th of November 1983. It was broadcast a couple of days earlier, I think actually on the anniversary in America and stuff. But, what do we think?
I loved it. It's one of my favourite specials, personally.
It is great, to be fair.
And as we said, with the Three Doctors, it had a really high pedestal to start off with, and this goes above that.
This is the first one for me that really feels like a proper celebration of the show, because obviously by this point it's been 20 years now, which is a long time for any show, let alone a sci-fi show. And it's done 20 years by this point. You've got all of the Doctors in there with a star. I think it's a special as well. It's a 90-minute episode rather than a serial or something. It's there to be like, hey, Doctor Who, isn't it great? Here's this big special where we've got John Pertwee, Patrick Troughton, Peter Davison, and then Tom Baker in some archive unused footage from Sharda because he didn't want to do it, which is a shame. I think his absence is felt in some places for me a little bit.
Yeah, especially later on in the episode.
Yeah. With Richard Hurndall as the first Doctor, what do you think about that?
It's a bit strange because you see the first Doctor for the first time being portrayed by someone else, and Hartnell brought a certain what's the word? Yeah, there was something special that Hartnell actually brought.
Yeah.
To the role, and I feel that is missed with the recasting, but it's nice that we actually get to see a first Doctor in this special.
Yeah, I think for me, Hurndall he looks the part. I just think, and he's got some of the mannerisms and stuff, but I think that he's not quite got the voice.
No, and I think that's the bit that stands out.
Yeah, but he's got some of the sort of more, the gestures and things that Hartnell used to do and pick up on. There's a lot of that in there, which is cool, and that's nice to see. I just think it is bizarre, but it can't be helped, unfortunately. It's just
it's one of those things.
But I think he does a good enough job, and it's quite obviously the first Doctor. You don't sit there going, "Oh, who's this meant to be?" sort of thing. We watched this on the season 20 Blu-ray, and it looks really good. It looks. They've got a Dolby Atmos mix on it as well, which sounds cracking on a nice big soundbar. And it looks and sounds really well, and the new effects are great.
Yeah, no, definitely. If you can purchase the box, it's great.
Yeah, you get 3 versions of the Five Doctors in that box set. You get the televised version, and then you get with the triangle for the time scoop. Then you get the special edition from the 90s, which is the Mr. Whippy thing.
Yeah.
And then this new one, which is like a
paperweight. Yeah,
kind of like a paperweighty gem type thing. But it looks awesome, and there's other effects. I won't spoil all of it if you haven't seen it yet, but there are a lot of nice treats in there. I think I will say something. There's a certain punch sound effect that gets added somewhere that just made me laugh. Not necessarily that was needed, but there we are.
Oh, it's worth it. Definitely worth having it in.
Because the time scoop is there because it's picking up the Doctor and different companions throughout different points. The first Doctor's, I don't know, he's having a walk around some nice house somewhere.
Yeah.
The second Doctor is off to see Brigadier Lethbridge Stewart at his retirement do. And they're picked up there. We have
the third Doctor driving around in Bessie.
Yeah. And what interested me about the Troughton and Brigadier bit is the fact that's the same house that they use for Unit in the Three Doctors, which I never knew before because they shoot it from, I think, just around the corner of the house, which I didn't know until today. Learn something new every day. Pertwee's just driving through Brecon, just chilling, and he gets scooped, and then Tom Baker and Lalla Ward are picked up in Sharda.
Yeah, on a boat.
Unusual. Which is strange. I suppose it must be really bizarre if you actually watch Sharda, it almost makes it better because, they've all been picked up from different points in their time and everything, but you actually see, if you watch Sharda and everything, you see that bit where they get picked up and put back as if nothing's happened. It's, it does enhance it in a weird way. It is a shame, like I said, Tom Baker's not there, but, it is what it is.
Yeah.
I do like how the main trio of the fifth Doctor, Tegan and Turlough, has been toned down a little bit now. Because in season 20, they're quite hostile. Obviously, there's a bit of hostility towards Turlough because he was going to kill the Doctor and everything. But even afterwards, in King's Demons and stuff, they're still bickering and, a bit of, argy-bargy sort of passive aggressiveness.
Just a bit of conflict like between the two.
Yeah, which the cast wanted to turn down anyway because they all got on really well, and have a bit of conflict, but it doesn't need to be like as nasty and as bitchy as it is.
Yeah.
And it's toned down a bit here, which is quite nice. And I think Tegan and Turlough do make quite a good little duo.
Yeah. My only criticism though is Turlough, after Enlightenment, doesn't get a lot to do.
No, not really until Planet of Fire. Frontios, I suppose, to an extent as well. But
yeah, but it's noticeable.
Yeah, he's the one that is like the getting locked up and separated and walking around corridors,
being told to stay in the TARDIS. Like it's, and you can almost see that it's starting to annoy Turlough a bit as well.
Which is fair enough.
I'd be fuming.
I think one thing I did find really bizarre is that they bring Susan back, and Carol Ann Ford, who made no secret of the fact that she left because Susan stopped being interested and she kept just being twisting her ankle and screaming and being told to stay in the TARDIS. And what does she do in the Five Doctors? She's screaming, she twists her ankle, and she's told to stay in the TARDIS.
Yeah.
She doesn't get a lot to do. I think she's quite short, apart from obviously the ones in the little cameo roles that you see later on, like Mike and Liz and Jamie and Zoe. She's the one that really sort of gets the least amount to do, really. Because they all get paired off, and I think it's interesting to keep them apart and then only really bring them all together at the end.
Yeah, you get to see the different dynamics, the different companions with the different incarnation of the Doctor, and that was actually quite cool because you get to see you get to see a different interaction between the same characters effectively.
Yeah, I like seeing the interactions between the Third Doctor and Sarah Jane because she's obviously quite. When you think of Sarah Jane, I always think of her with the Fourth Doctor, even though she has a whole season with Pertwee.
Yeah, you do think, oh yeah, Tom Baker's her Doctor.
Yeah, they're more iconic together, aren't they? But I like the dynamic between the Third Doctor and Sarah.
Yeah.
I think it does work, and it's nice to see a bit more of it here. Same with Troughton and the Brigadier.
Yes, that was
cool.
Good fun.
Having them, because they have a bit of, they don't argue, but they sort of wind each other up a little bit. With like the odd jokes here and there and stuff, and the Doctor's singing and Brigadier's like, are you in pain or something?
Yeah,
I liked all of that, and obviously Pertwee gets some Cybermen stuff as well. Not a lot, but he
gets a bit. Yeah.
Finally, he meets the Cybermen on screen for the first time because that doesn't happen in his run. What do we think of the Raston Warrior Gimp?
You had to put Gimp in there as well.
Yes. We had a Gimp in the last one.
We did have a Gimp in the last one.
This was a proper Gimp. He's a shiny silver Gimp.
Yeah, he is.
It's simple. It's basically just like the Earthshock thing is just silver.
And the effect is a lot better.
Yeah.
In the Blu-ray edition.
And it absolutely decimates all the Cybermen. And you can tell that Terrance Dicks doesn't like the Cybermen because they basically get killed in like there's two big scenes where all the Cybermen just get massacred. Like the Rasta Warrior robot is just throwing spears and like slicing and dicing them, makes a poor Cyberman throw up.
Yeah. Cybermen can throw up. That is something we learnt in this, is Cybermen can be sick.
Looks like you after a couple of Jaeger bombs, like.
Don't threaten me with a good time, son.
It's Sunday, it's the Lord's Day of Rest, have some respect. Yeah, I really enjoyed all of that. I enjoyed because it doesn't feel ploddy. It's like with the Three Doctors, some of that felt a bit like, it's just walking around and talking and everything. Whereas there's enough peppered in there. Like Troughton and the Brigadier come up against a Yeti.
Yeah.
For example, there's lots of little callbacks and things, and it really feels like a really good celebration. And the story's good as well because you get the Death Zone, which is a really cool way of just throwing anything that you want in there. Going, we'll have a Dalek, we'll have some Cybermen, we'll have a Yeti, we'll have whatever. And we'll just throw that all in there.
We'll have random bolts of lightning.
Yeah. More any excuse for Anthony Ainley to speed mints across the Brecon Beacons is fine by me.
That man really did really well as a master.
He's so camp. It's brilliant.
It really is.
It's when there's that initial scene on Gallifrey where they're sort of recruiting him to help the Doctor, and he's really hamming it up there. He's like a cheesy pantomime villain, and it weirdly works.
I absolutely love the pantomime villains sometimes, though.
And they're running across the thing and everything, and that explosion goes off, and he sort of like drapes himself in his cape, and it's like underneath it. It's just really, it's unnecessary. It's unintentionally funny, but not in like a bad way. No,
and like all of this going on with the Death Zone is the main plot. Effectively,
yeah, it's basically that they're being taken out of time because they need to be gotten rid of because there's a traitor at work at Gallifrey and is trying to claim immortality essentially. And it's quite cool how it's almost like because the Fifth Doctor gets separated relatively early on.
Yeah, he gets sent off to the Congress chambers at Gallifrey.
Yes. And he's there basically to try and work out who the traitor is, and it's planted on Paul Castellan, and we get that immortal line of, "No, not the mind probe," which is one of my favourite lines ever. And if you watch the alternative take where he just screams it really camp, it's fantastic. Brilliant. I'll have to show you that. It's hilarious. But, it's a bit of sort of like a murder mystery thing, because, there's still a traitor at work, because it was not the Castellan, and it turns out to be President Barusa. He's corrupt. Because the Time Lords aren't, and that seems to be a bit of a recurring theme now with these specials. It's just going, maybe the Time Lords just aren't as nice as we think they are. Obviously the Doctor's still a bit ticked off from everything that happened in Arc of Infinity as well. And Barusa is behind all of this, and it's not nice, is it?
No. He's found out to be basically trying to get his immortality off of Rassilon, or from the tomb of Rassilon, wearing the headdress of Rassilon. I forget what it's called.
It's the everything of Rassilon.
It's the everything of Rassilon. And he wants to get...
This is the review of Rassilon.
Yeah, he wants to get Rassilon's ring. Yeah, I'm leaving it like that. So he wants to get that, because that will give him his immortality. But he has to use the Doctors and his different incarnations to get past all the defences of the Tower of Rassilon.
Yeah.
Just to get to the tomb.
I think it's really cool to have all of these like defences as well, like the Ransomware robot and like the Cybermen and everything, because it peppers all like the talking and walking stuff with a bit of action, and it keeps it a bit pacey. I'd like to see a bit more action, but because of the different interactions between the different characters, it keeps you interested, because you never think you'd see the First Doctor and Turlough interacting, and that's quite like that'd be quite an interesting pairing, to be fair, because like the First Doctor's such an authority figure and Turlough's such like a rebel.
Yeah, and I
think that would work quite well. What did confuse me, and it confuses me every time I watch it, is the fact that no one's asked about Susan being there. Like the other Doctors are like, right, it's your granddaughter. Like you haven't seen in ages that you said you go back for.
She didn't,
and then she's not bothered, and there's no sort of like I get the sort of bit where even like the First Doctor introduces her to Peter Davison's Doctor, like, this is Susan, by the way, and he's like, I know, and that's it. It's like you don't need to introduce Susan. She's a granddaughter. Yeah,
no, they should have made more of a fuss out of her being there. It was nice to see Peter Davison as well. Speak after the First Doctor basically tells Tegan, go get us some food and drink. Apologise for his former self and saying that he's mellowed with age.
Yeah, which stuff. In places he hasn't, because he's still just talking to Tegan like a piece of shit sometimes.
Yeah, but it's nice that they've kind of realised that the times have changed by this point.
Yeah, it's almost like the start of this joke of like the First Doctor was like a raging sexist, and even though he was no more sexist than some of the other Doctors from the classic era, and at the end of the day, it was the writers. That was the attitudes of the time. It wasn't like the character wouldn't be like that. If you wrote the First Doctor now, unless you're Stephen Moffat, you wouldn't write him like that. And when Stephen Moffat did do that, it just made no sense to me.
No, I mean they could have kept a bit of it in for when Stephen Moffat did it, just to there's no way they needed to do as much as they did.
Yeah, that's something
a little bit's understandable considering it is the First Doctor, and that's how he was written. So it's being honourable to the writers who made it.
Yeah,
but you didn't need to just throw it in your face and be like, see how it was.
Yeah. What I do like about Five Doctors, though, is the fact that even though, all right, with the exception of Turlough and Susan, you've got four really, Doctors there coming back, each of them with a companion, and nobody really feels like they've been shortchanged, apart from, obviously, like, Tom Baker and Alan Ward is different, but nobody really feels like they've been shortchanged. Like, everybody gets enough to do, and it's quite equal as well. And there's, like I said, there's enough stuff in there peppered throughout to keep it going. I think it would have been nice to see a couple more people, maybe.
Yeah, going back to the shortchange bit, I mean, even Turlough in this has a bit more to do, because him and Susan are about to get blown up in a TARDIS.
Yeah, they basically sort of...
Cyberbomb.
I love the bit where she just turns to him, she goes, what do we do now? And without missing, she goes,
die.
It's like those memes you see where it's like something crashing onto the Earth and the Earth is like blowing up. It's like, what would you do in this situation? Die.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very on the nose to the point. Yeah.
And is this the first time the Doctor Who was filmed in Wales?
I believe so.
because I don't know where they film. I know the Green Death is set in Wales. I don't know if they. I think they did. No, they did film it in Wales. They did because it's not far from here. It's about half an hour, like that way.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is but it's one of the first times it's filmed, which eventually would become Doctor Who's home. Really.
Yeah.
It's Doctor Who. It's a very Welsh show.
Yeah, and it's nice to see the Brecon Beacons.
But I think as a story, it's a bit not thin. It's just not that.
It's not your normal story.
Yeah, it's definitely. It feels like special, and it's very much character driven than plot driven. Whereas I think the Three Doctors was a bit more of both. It was plot and character. Whereas it's a bit more thin on the ground. But like what is there is really good and entertaining, and because the stuff with the characters is so good, you sort of don't really mind it. Because as a special, like I said, this film feels like much more celebratory than the Three Doctors did. And I know at the time, because obviously you've got John Nathan Turner running it, who was like a showman for the programme. He's doing all of these American conventions and things, and it's pulling in all these big guest stars and stuff. And with this, it was like a really nice way of being self-indulgent in a good way, and celebrating how far the show's come. And another thing that I quite like them doing with the first two of these anniversary things is that to celebrate the legacy of the show, the first Doctor is very much the one that they all look up to, which is weird because he's the youngest.
Yeah.
If you think about it, like obviously not like as he appears. But in terms of the Doctor's timeline, he's the youngest, and it's the fact that they all look up to him. Like, he's the one that cracks it in this, He's like, no, hang on, Bruce, you can have immortality, we're fine, crack on, but they're like, what are you doing? And then you realise that immortality is a curse because you basically just get your face stuck on the side of... Because you get your face stuck on the side of Rassilon's tomb, innit? So
yeah.
I think, overall, for me, I adore this, I really do.
Yeah. No, I do as well. I really enjoyed this episode.
Yeah. Solid A star from me.
Yeah, and me. It's definitely one of the best specials they've done.
Yeah. If you want something celebratory and something, around, all right, it's a bit out of date in terms of that it's the 20th anniversary and we're in the 60th anniversary year. But if you want something that celebrates the show, definitely go and watch this. And if you haven't seen it before, it's a really good way of getting into Classic Who. Because I've watched this with a couple of people that aren't necessarily into Classic Who, and it's just a good thing because you get a flavour for all the different Doctors, not necessarily Tom, but you get a flavour for different areas. You get to see the different monsters and stuff, and because it's because of the fact that it's a special, it's paced a bit more closer to what people be used to with the new series. It's still a bit longer, but it's still got that sort of like continuous pace rather than being chopped up into cliffhangers and things. Although there is a version that does exist in 4 parts, and the cliffhangers that they've had to cut just because the times are hilarious. One of them is a bit where the master just creeps down the stairs and you get the sting of the cliffhanger. It's just really funny. But for me, I absolutely love this. I could go on and on about how much I enjoy this all the time, to be honest, but I won't because that will get really boring and repetitive.
Yeah, no, it's definitely leaps and bounds above Three Doctors. Not saying Three Doctors wasn't great. I think we've made that point on that. That was
Three Doctors is good. I love this. I absolutely love this.
This is one, probably both of us, this is like top.
Yeah. It's one of my it's probably my top 5 Davison stories, and anybody that knows me knows that I absolutely adore the Davison era, which a lot of people don't because they're weird.
Everyone's got their favourite Doctor, don't they?
Yeah, no. I think for me it's because Davison was the one I watched the most when I was younger. I think because of the energy and everything of him and the fact that I wasn't necessarily into the black and white ones when I was little, and there's quite a few of them on DVD when they first started coming out. And this was the 5 Doctors was the first one that was on DVD.
Yeah.
Back in 1990, whatever it was, 95 or something like that. But overall, definitely give this one a watch, and
100%.
Let us know what you think in the comments. And next week, come back and join us as we'll be watching Scream of the Shalka.
Yes.
Which was an animated story from 2003 to celebrate the show's 40th anniversary. We're skipping 30 because we've done Dimensions in Time. So if you want to watch us do that,
it's already on there. Go have a look.
Yeah, I'll put a link.
Yeah.
There somewhere in the description.
Yeah, just down there.
Yeah. But
just below, you can also leave a comment and tell us what you thought about the 5 Doctors, if you have seen it, or once you've seen it. Yeah, I think if you haven't seen it yet, absolutely missing out on one of the best and one of the most fun. It's one of those ones you could sit down and have fun to. There's some Doctor Who episodes that you're like, I don't really know if I'm in the mood to watch Midnight or something. Yeah. Whereas 5 Doctors, you always be in the mood for 5 Doctors. It's proper comfort telling. I do enjoy Midnight. No, I'm not saying I don't enjoy Midnight. I'm just saying there are days where I don't want to watch Midnight and would rather watch something like fun, like the 5 Doctors. Oh, fair. But yeah, that's what we think. Let us know what you think, and we will see you
next week.
Yes. And please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe as well, as it really does help us out.
Yes, it does.
As you really want to watch us get drunk and watch Orphan 55, you best hit that subscribe button.
Yeah.
Like,
And,
get your friends to, and your family,
and your dog.
and your dog,
And your hamster.
and your cat.
And your postman.
Yes, just everyone.
And your milk. What is this? Campbell Green? I don't know what I'm on about here. Anyway, we'll see you all next week.
See you later.